Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Thursday, August 28th, 2025. Now, if you haven't been here before and you do find these tropical weather outlook and discussions very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification icon to get daily tropical weather updates, including tropical live weather coverage on any landfalling hurricane or tropical storm in the United States or the Caribbean within the next 2 days. Hit that like button and share this video with their family and friends on social media. Now, looking at the deep tropical Atlantic here on your Thursday afternoon and evening here on the 28th of August, 2025, and we have a couple of tropical waves that we are monitoring this afternoon here. The first tropical wave that we're watching right now that has a 0% chance of tropical development is approaching Trinidad and Tobago as well as Barbados in the next 24 to 36 hours. This is going to bring in a lot of rainfall, some gusty winds, that sort of thing, but no chances of this becoming a hurricane or a tropical storm for the foreseeable future, as this remains at a very low latitude and approaches Venezuela in Central America in about 3 to 4 days. We have another tropical wave that we are going to need to be watching really closely here in the next 7 or so days. It's right now in the central portion of Africa and will be coming off of Africa by Sunday. And there is a lot of ensemble model support of this developing into our next tropical depression or tropical storm by the time we get into September the 7th and the 8th, just in time for the very peak, the highest end of activity of the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. So we definitely need to be watching the tropics very closely in the weeks ahead. So now, with that being said, let's take a look now at our latest GFS global computer model over the next 10 days here, because the GFS may be onto something along to go with what I'm about to show you to support the GFS model. So what we're looking at here, of course, is the cyclonic relative vorticity plot here at 5,000 feet. So this tells us of how much spin there is in the atmosphere at a particular level. And this is looking again at 5,000 feet above the atmosphere. There is what is left with subtropical or extratropical cyclone Fernand moving into the westerlies with another little piece of energy behind it, but otherwise nothing to be concerned about down here in the deep tropics. Now, these height lines tell us what part of the atmosphere has higher heights than the surrounding atmosphere. So this is basically a topographical map showing us a big sprawling ridge of high pressure out here in the central Atlantic. A lot of westerlies up here to the north, some easterlies beneath this. So we have some drier air coming in from higher latitudes. And we have a little bit of a trough of lower pressure right over here in the low levels across the Great Lakes and the eastern seaboard, bringing some fall-like temperatures there. So now that you know how to read the map, let's put this into motion and see with what the GFS shows here over the next 3 days. And of course, it's showing nothing, although there is a little bit of subtropical mischief that could develop here along a stalled frontal boundary off the eastern seaboard, but whatever, it's nothing to be concerned about. Not much model members are picking that up versus this ridge here that it's pretty well established. You know, the ridge is there and things are going to be pretty stable for the time being. Now, as we go and forward the clock here over the next 5 days, it's this tropical wave right here. See this little guy? Looks little, doesn't it? Won't be so little once we go into the 10-day forecast and show you that this could be definitely a system out there to track out there in the Atlantic. So this would be, by the way, for Tuesday next week. So that's that tropical wave that the NHC is watching. And then look what happens. By day 7, it does try to get its act together. Now, of course, this is very far out in time in relative sense. So this is Thursday next week on the 4th of September. So nearly 7 to 8 days away from happening. And therefore, the confidence in this is rather low. It's not very high confidence, but it is the peak of hurricane season. So we cannot take our eyes off at all from the tropics, especially with any little thing out there that wants to spin up. It can go completely very fast. So going out to day 9 and day 10 here, this is as far out as I am going. And look what the GFS wants to spit out here a pretty intense tropical cyclone, really compact in nature, winds of about 30 to 40 miles an hour. And then guess what? We have another one behind that coming off of Africa. The African wave train shall return by the time we get into the middle of September. And boy, wait until I show you what Ben Null has tweeted and what Dylan Federico has also posted in regards to this pattern out here in the MDR. Now, when we take a look at our environmental forecast parameters here, first looking at the deep layer moisture plot. So brown colors indicate that there's a lot of dry air in the deep layers of the atmosphere, really stable, air is sinking, things are not going to thrive very well with this. Some vertical wind shear to make things even more hostile out here in the deep tropics. But guess what? Things will be changing as we go beyond the day 7 and day 9 time frame. And you can see here, look what happens. There is lesser, drier air out there, especially in the southwestern Atlantic. I mean, we're not seeing much brown colors, and the relative humidities here are between 60 to 75%, which are relatively high compared to average. A little bit of dry air here, but we are slowly whisking away that drier air as we go deeper and deeper into September with lesser dry air and not much anticyclonic wave breaking events that are shaping up compared to with what we're seeing here. See that northerly flow, and then it looks like the pattern changes. Now, the only inhibitor here that I can think of that would prevent a lot of activity, at least for the first week or so of September, would be a lot of anticyclonic wave breaking events, a lot of TUT or tropical upper level tropospheric trough for short. Another way, a fancy term of saying these cutoff lows come off the jet stream, they buckle like this, they cut off and they retrograde and help to keep the shear going to the south of them. So let's put this into motion and show you with what we're looking at. So here's a little bit of a TUT-like cell right here. You can see the westerly flow here, nice little TUT. And then here's a little bit of another TUT cell, increasing some southwesterly flow over the deep tropics here. This is going to continue and probably amplify a little bit more as we go out to day 10. So through, say, Sunday morning on the 7th of September. Again, nice long wave trough here, northwesterly flow here, doing this. We got a nice anticyclonic ridge here, another anticyclonic ridge here. And then in between, we have a little bit of a TUT cell right here, and the ending result is westerly shear over the Caribbean. Now, while most of the deterministic models from the Canadian, the Icon, and the European model are not showing much in the way of development out there, the ensembles have continued to trend a little bit more aggressive and bullish in today's 12Z output of the 28th of August. So first of all, let's take a look here at the European ensemble forecast, and we can see there is definitely a little bit more of a coherent signal out here in the deep tropics, right where the global tropics hazard outlook was highlighted from the Climate Prediction Center, indicating a moderate risk for tropical development in this area in the 2nd or 2 week of September, which is about the 7th through the 9th and the 10th of September, if that makes sense. So the European model definitely picking up something here by the end of the first full week of September. Maybe a little bit of tropical mischief here early on in the period, but I'm not really in good agreement with that. I think nothing's going to really develop along that stalled front, but hey, you never know. With very warm sea surface temperatures down here, things could be caught off by surprise. And of course, with the upper level jet, that can make things for some interesting subtropical development as well. Looking at the GEFS ensemble now, while it is not very friendly at showing much of a signal out here in the MDR, it's showing a little bit of a stronger signal here off of the eastern seaboard here of the mid-Atlantic with maybe a subtropical system that could develop, but there's a very, very low chance, less than a 10% chance according to the NHC. But it's something to kind of track along since we are in this rather dead spell right now, which again will not last long, and I have a lot of evidence to back that up towards the end of today's update. Now, looking at the artificial intelligence model, the FNV3, there's two DeepMind Google models, and this is one of them, showing a very strong signal here, and perhaps maybe into a tropical storm. And some models are even going a little bit bullish here, showing maybe a hurricane, maybe a high-end tropical storm by the end of the first full week of September in 10 days. That is something we are going to need to watch closely. Really, I don't like hyping up stuff very much, but wow, what a signal from our AI model from one of them. And looking at the other AI model, also really coherent here, showing tropical development. And I want to just make it clear here, even so this develops further west, or how soon it develops will determine on how close this gets. Because right now, most of the members are bringing this pretty much off towards the west-northwest, keeping it very close or just to the north of the Leeward Islands. Very, very similar to with what we had with Major Hurricane Erin, if that makes sense. Now, just because this does gain latitude earlier does not mean that, oh, the eastern United States is going to be safe from this. Because as you know, we remember Florence. Florence did this, and then it kind of bent back and just kind of directed itself into the Carolinas. That's one primary example that I wanted to illustrate in today's video, that people are already going to assume that, oh, this is going to go out to sea. In fact, someone actually made a comment on my last video saying, oh, this hurricane season's completely done, David. We're not going to have any landfalling hurricanes or tropical systems. This is a dud. This is a bust. That's very foolish and very immature, because we are still on the up climb of the peak of the hurricane season, which doesn't arrive until September the 10th. All right, so we still have 2 weeks to go, even before the very peak, the climatological peak of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, and it remains extremely active. Far more active in September and October than it is usually in early or mid-August. So we have a long way to go, people. We really do. We are not done yet, all right? Do not turn your back on the season. Do not. It's very foolish, very immature, and very dangerous. That's how a lot of problems occur, because when we have backloaded seasons, they're the more dangerous ones versus if we had early season activity. All right, enough with that. Let's take a look now at our tropical cyclone strike probability forecast. I showed this in yesterday's video. I wanted to show that in today's video. And you can see here for the 1st and through the 8th of September, this is an updated one as of August 28th today. You can see chances here remain fairly moderate, anywhere between 40 to 50% here in this green area. So chances are pretty elevated for the first week of September. And of course, here we got a elevated chance of about a 10 to 20% for something that could form there along the eastern seaboard into a subtropical system. That would be really quick, not really a big problem. Now, going into week number 2 here, this is when things get a little bit more busier, perhaps a little further west and also in the Gulf versus what we're seeing in the first full week of September. You can see what the difference is there. And then going into week number 3, this is week 3, you can see chances here all the way up to 60%. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a small anomaly right about in here, highlighting even up to a 60 to 70% chance of tropical development there in the week 3 timeframe, with chances definitely going up in the Caribbean as well as along the southwestern portion of the Atlantic. So again, we are not done, folks. I hate to say it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're just getting started. And as we go into the very end of September, you can see definitely the northwestern Caribbean and the Gulf really wake up because of that Central American gyre, or CAG for short, while we slowly but surely close down the Cape Verde season as we go into late September and early October, which is climatologically normal. It's not unusual to see that. We slowly shift our focus back to the west here with time. After we get about past about the middle part of September. So now with that all out of the way, let's take a look now at our sea surface temperatures and anomalies along to go with our upper ocean heat content and anomalies, because wait until I show you how our sea surface temperature anomaly configuration is set up. And there's even a tweet from Dylan Federico that backs up my claim here of how busy September might end up actually getting, especially once we get beyond about the 10th and the 11th of September. So looking at these actual upper ocean heat content areas here, lots of red, lots of purple here in the northwestern portion of the Caribbean. And this is basically telling us that the sea surface temperature warmth is not just at the surface, but it's very deep down in the column of the ocean, down as deep as about 700 or 800 feet, or even as deep as 900 feet in some of the off the chart anomalies here over, say, if you are in Jamaica, if you're in the Cayman Islands. This is really, really bad. This is not good, because if we get any system that goes far enough west, like we had with Ian, remember you all, Ian formed over here, tracked kind of this way, went near Jamaica, and then kind of did a turn that looked something like that. All right, pretty similar to that. And I mean, if we get any system that takes full advantage of this upper ocean heat content, it is going to be a big problem. We are going to have intense, violent hurricane production if things go the wrong way here in across much of the Caribbean, into the Gulf, the southwestern Atlantic. There's a lot and a lot and a lot of heat energy, latent heat being stored in the oceans here of the deep tropics of the Caribbean and the Gulf. And again, it only takes one storm and one landfall of it being a major hurricane or a very violent hurricane to cause a lot of mayhem, similar to Laura, Milton, let's see, Sally, Helene. It just, you get the idea where I'm going at with this. Katrina, which we'll be looking at towards the end of this video. I mean, you only need about 2 days of favorability and things could just blow up very quickly. Now, looking at the upper ocean heat content anomaly here, and the whole entire Caribbean pretty much right now is above average with upper ocean heat content. Also along to go with that in the Gulf and much of or semi portions of the southwestern Atlantic here, although there is Erin that upwelled a little bit of that upper ocean heat content where it's now below average. So I mean, that really sets the stage for what I'm about to show you here. But otherwise, upper ocean heat content is very, very favorable. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that September is going to end up being a very, very busy period ahead of us. And we have to be ready. We really do. All right. So now, speaking of our favorability in the Atlantic, take a look at this. I mean, this really rings a bell, and this actually, we're going to actually show you Dylan Federico here in a second that relates to this. Look at the intensifying La Nina happening in the Eastern and Central Pacific. I mean, you can't get as favorable as this, all right? For the Pacific side, it should be deemed unfavorable, but yet we saw Juliet, and we might see additional development over there, helping to get rid of this upper ocean heat content here and making more negative anomalies, making the Atlantic even more favorable. In fact, some of these anomalies here off of Peru are as cold as 2.5 to 4 degrees below average. I mean, that is very substantial. Huge upwelling taking place right now. A very strong oceanic Kelvin wave, actually. That's what we call them, really causing a lot of upwelling. In tandem with a very, very well above average Atlantic. I mean, golly. I mean, you can't get any more warmer than this. You can't ask for any more favorable, perfect environment here in the deep tropics of the Atlantic. Some of these anomalies here are up to 2 to 2.5 Celsius off the coast of Africa, 3 degrees Celsius above average. Are you kidding me? And then look at this, over the Gulf, the northwestern Caribbean, my goodness, water temperatures are anywhere between about 1 degree to 2.5 degrees above the long-term average. And wait until I show you in the zoomed in version of just how warm the Gulf is. In fact, some portions of the Gulf, I'll just kind of spit it out there right now. Key West, Florida, the island or the Bay of Youth, as well as some parts of the Bahamas, are seeing sea surface temperatures at around 32.5 to 33 Celsius, or about 90 to 91 Fahrenheit, which is absurd. That's just asking for something really big, possibly this September. Well, we can predict that we will have a major hurricane in September, but chances are typically really high. But I'm just telling you guys, things are just looking really ideal out there in the deep tropics. So let's take a look now at Dylan Federico's post here on X. Really good guy that I like to follow here. In fact, I'm going to repost this in today's video. And so he says here, that's a very favorable look for the Atlantic Basin headed into September. What did we just talk about? What did we just talk about? Very big horseshoe shape, La Nina, and we'll zoom in on this. Classic plus AMO horseshoe and cold INSO, maybe even a weak La Nina developing. Look out. And here's a closer zoomed in view looking at just the Atlantic here. I mean, holy moly. Look at all of these negative sea surface temperature anomalies up here. I mean, literally, you could really paint a really good picture where Aaron was moving through, really helped to upwell a lot of that cooler water beneath the hurricane, on top of now we had Fernand to help that out a little bit. And now we have a very warm AMO look. My goodness, I'm telling you guys, if we don't see any development in September, or not much significant development or any landfalling hurricanes, we got darn lucky. We really did, because this right here has the look to me that really asks and begs for a very, very, very busy mid to late September into early October. Again, so that briefly leads into the extended forecast here. And this is from Ben Knoll, a guy that does not like hyping up stuff at all. In fact, I followed him for the last several years here on X, and this guy actually has a lot of followers, 85,400 followers. So this guy is very reliable, does not hype up anything at all, and is quite conservative. So when he says this, people in hurricane-prone areas should use this current lull to prepare, because it's not going to last. So right now, we're breathing in a lot of oxygen, relaxing and enjoying the break while it lasts. Because again, mark your calendars about that 7th, more like about the 10th or the 11th of September and beyond. I think once it picks up, once the spark is lit, there's going to be an inferno going out there in the Atlantic. And I don't think it's going to be extinguished for a few weeks, or if not even longer. So once it starts, it sticks until we get into late October into early November. And so he goes on to saying continuously here, by mid to late September is what my predictions are here. A significant pulse of convection or upward motion in the atmosphere is forecast to develop over the Atlantic and Africa. Rising storm risks, all right? This does not mean we will see major hurricanes. This does not mean we need to panic right now. We're looking at early signals that give us a very busy period. And one of those is the Madden-Julian oscillation, convective coupled Kelvin waves, Rossby wave activity. That's what sets us up for this kind of thing. And you can see here as we animate this over the next several weeks, look at where all that green motion is. This is September 22nd. All upward favorability here over Africa and even over India. So we're going to have a mixed mode of CAG activity as well as Cape Verde activity coming off of Africa as well. So mixed mode here, keeping us quite busy. All right. One last thing that I wanted to show you all here is Dylan Federico again, because today is the 20th anniversary since Category 5 catastrophic Hurricane Katrina was intense. And on this day in 2005, again, my dad woke me up at around 4 a.m. and said, it's time to go. He had the Hurricane Katrina NHC floater on the computer, and that eye just popped out. Look at this hurricane. You talk about Ian being intense, or Laura being intense, Milton being intense, Aaron being very strong, and Lee being strong. Holy cow. Look at that eye with Hurricane Katrina. So again, this is a big day to remember for those people and victims perhaps in Louisiana that were seriously impacted by Katrina on this given day and were prepping evacuations because of how strong that is. And this goes to show you, I mean, this is late August, early September. Could we have another situation like this into mid or late September? I cannot tell you yes or no. We have to be ready. All right, if the pattern allows it, we could see some very explosive activity in the Gulf, in the Caribbean, or the Southwestern Atlantic to end out the hurricane season. That's why we have to be ready. So with that being said, if you haven't been here before and you did find today's tropical weather outlook and discussion very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon to receive daily tropical weather updates, live stream coverage on the tropics with any landfalling hurricane or tropical storm within 2 days of reaching the United States or the Caribbean. Hit that like button and share this video with your family and friends on social media. As always, have a great rest of your Thursday afternoon here on the 28th of August, 2025. I'll be back with you more Saturday afternoon or evening with a live stream discussion on the tropics, as I will be very busy tomorrow away from my home office as I will be working at my second job. As always, have a great rest of your day.